How do you balance your work life?
Some days better than others, man. Your friends want to see you do well, but never better than them. Mm-hmm. And I've experienced that a lot since I started my business. And I try to put everyone on. You can take any situation and you can sit and dwell on it or whatever, find some sort of positive.
What's the good out of it?
You know what I mean? There's a good and bad in any situation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Intrepidus Podcast, episode number 18, with your hosts, Dan and Anthony. Today we have a special guest, Craig Schuber from Push and Paint. Welcome, Craig.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. My man over here is Push and Paint, but I'll let him explain a little bit about what he does.
Yeah, so Push and Paint, it's a company I started about 3 years ago. We started out small, just me and my brother-in-law helping me paint a couple jobs. I went out on my own, took the leap of faith. I ran a painting company for about 7 years. Pretty successful company to this day. I'm still friends with the guy that opened it, one of my best friends. He was one of my groomsmen at my wedding. I watched him start his business from nothing, man. And I learned from him. One of my mentors to this day. I lean on him in business, friendship, however you want to go. We bounce ideas off each other. It goes both ways. And when I got to a point where, inside myself, I didn't feel like I was growing anymore. You know what I mean? I felt stagnant, right? The company was growing. It was doing great. I was learning things, but myself as a person, I didn't feel like I was growing, right? Maybe I wanted more for myself. Maybe I thought I deserved more, whatever that looked like. Not that he didn't take care of me or, no ill feelings towards him whatsoever. All great things. And when, obviously he was one of the first people I told I was going on my own, he was right there to support me, right? My birthday was shortly after. He bought me a sprayer for my birthday, was there to support me in any way. Since we started up, I have 6 guys full time now, continuing to grow. We're doing a lot more things besides painting. We've introduced, some remodeling, like tiling, a lot of the stuff I do in-house. I have a carpenter in-house. We're doing some custom built-ins. A lot of cool stuff, man. Learning along the way, opened up some other businesses like we were talking about earlier, and just trying to, keep it moving, seeing what else comes from it.
Right, So what made you take the plunge? Because we know, that the theme behind this podcast, right, is fear and jumping in, and a lot of people hesitate to jump into something because they have some overwhelming fear of some sort. Sometimes it's irrational, sometimes there's some purpose or reason behind it. What exactly pushed you over the edge? What, got you over that fear to go out on your own, and for what reason?
So I know we touched on it early on, man. Like, I think growing up, in any circumstance that I was in, I almost felt like I sold myself short, right? In any way. Sometimes just to look like a better person, right? Sometimes just to avoid confrontation. But like deep down underneath, like, you feel like there's something more, right? And I had that feeling for a long time. And I know, with the people around me and trusting a process along the way, that if you put in the action, you'll get results, right? No matter what it is. And I was just at a point teetering back and forth where, like, I wanted more for myself. I wanted more for my family, especially my daughter. I have endless support around me, right? And, just getting pushed down so long by so many different people, feeling small in areas that I felt like I wasn't small. It was time to just make a change, man. And I took the leap. I had guys around me that were like willing to like put me on with jobs that I knew that I can get right away. I started doing side work when I was working with this company, and it got to a point where like I was working nonstop. So it's like, why am I still showing up to this job, essentially lining someone else's pockets when I can put all this focus into my own, and what I thought at that time I was going to be lining my pockets. But let's be real, owning a business isn't always what you think it's going to be.
That's true. So a couple things. Does entrepreneurship stem in your family, or is it something that you broke the seed and went out there and did it?
I would say I broke the seed, man. Not to bash anyone in my family. My family is very...
traditional.
Vanilla.
Vanilla, not even traditional, just very like... if I would have told my mom that I was going in the union, she would have thought it was the best thing for me. Right. If you ask me what I think of the union, and you ask all my boys that are in the union, I tell them all to leave. Right. Like I remember, and this isn't a bash on my mom whatsoever. I remember the day I told her I was leaving and started my own company, and her response to me was, "Are you sure? Do you think that's a good idea?" Right. Not the greatest motivation going into it. I don't bash her for it. I love it because that drove me even harder. You know what I mean? I didn't have the backing. My wife obviously has had my back through everything and a few other friends along the way. But like as a family aspect of it, it was kind of like, do you think that's a good idea? Not, my past probably held me back, in their mind as well. So
we're going to talk about your past for a second, but you obviously have fear that you overcame because you did something that nobody in your family did, and you have ambition because people who maybe didn't believe in you made you push even harder. But let's talk about another side of your life. Not only do you own a painting company, but you own a sober living house.
yes,
And you own a sober living house. We didn't even talk about this, but I believe for a reason. You are a recovering addict.
yes,
And I think it's important for the audience to understand maybe a little bit about the old Craig and the places you were, the things that you did, and that time when you realized you needed to change your life. And now, how did you end up today owning a place that's going to help the old Craig?
yeah. So I mean, long story short, man, came from a small town, right? Not to harp too much on the past, but like, I didn't have shit growing up, right? Deadbeat dad, child support check was always there, but didn't come around, right? So I didn't really have that male figure. I had like a best friend's dad who like brought me to like football camps and paid my way through stuff, paid for my gym memberships to like be a part of that, right? But like the new shoes, the nice clothes, all the stuff that I saw people with, I didn't have none of that. So I started selling drugs, right? And that led me in jail as soon as I turned 18. Along doing that, I hung around some bad parts where I didn't belong, learned some things that like not your average 16, 17-year-old really do, but like, and I make jokes about it, but like I grew up worshiping gangsters, man. Like I remember watching American Gangster 14, 15 years old. I'm like, dude, this is what I want. Like I want to have that power. I want to have that money. I want to have that respect, right? And I got quoted. I got arrested when I was 18. I went away for about 20 months. And caught some felonies and I did my time. And, I'd love to say that I came out a better man and I was perfect and, the obsession for drugs was gone, but it wasn't. I came out and I started doing the same thing over again, right? I thought I could go back to selling drugs. That's the only thing I knew how to make money. And it got to a point where my PO was like, look, dude, like you need to go away and get help or I'm sending you back. And I didn't want to go back. So I went away to detox again. And while I was in that detox, they were like, do you want to go to the sober house? And I had no idea what a sober house was. And I went and I learned, a lot of things about life, dude, right? Responsibility. I had to make my bed, right? I had a curfew. I had to go to X amount of AA meetings a week. I had to get a sponsor. I had to go through the steps. I had to do all this stuff that, like, I never, like, I would have told you you were corny if you did this stuff, right? Like, these are the type of people that I would make fun of, right? I've been to treatment 10 times prior to this, and every single time I'm like, all right, the steps on the wall, I'll do 1, 2, but I'm not doing the rest, right? I'll go to the meetings, but I'm not going to quit smoking weed because I don't rob people for weed. I'll do this and that, but like I'm not going to stop drinking because I'm not even 21 years old yet. Like I haven't even had a legal drink. Drinking might not be my problem, right? At the end of the day, I come to find out that I'm my problem, right? It doesn't matter what you put in front of me, right? I'll find a way to take myself out of reality of life, and I'll be the same scumbag with heroin as I am without it, right? Unless I do some work on myself. And with that, I learned how to do that in these sober houses. So I moved out of that sober house, strung together some sobriety time, and that same dude that owns that painting company is my business partner in the sober living houses. We have 3 of them. We started out with 1, and sober dude 2, and we both went through the sober house process. I'm a firm believer that because of the sober houses, it gave me a better opportunity to stay sober, right? Coming up on 9 years sober, it's a beautiful thing, but like I give it all to the people that are around me, right? And with that, we opened the house. Yeah, it's a business. It can make money. We didn't make any money for a while after opening that house, but I can tell you, I can name 10 guys that celebrated a year sober, right? That got their wives back, that got their kids back, that have houses now, that have jobs and that are supporting themselves, right? That don't turn to the streets anymore. And I can't put a price tag on that, man. The freedom and joy that brings me, knowing that I was a part of that, not saying that I did that, right? They put in the work, but I gave them an opportunity and a space to do that and support. Is pretty cool, man. it's a pretty rewarding thing. By something that was given to me, I get to give that back to guys.
Seems like a couple things you learned were structure,
Absolutely.
how to structure things in your life for the better,
Yeah.
and also put Craig aside for a minute
Oh yeah.
and focus on other people. And if you focus on more people and you help more people, you'll always be taken care of.
That's a fact. Yeah.
Sounds like in the sobriety living house or sober living house, there's a lot of disciplines that apply to business.
Yeah. No, absolutely. 1000%, man.
And you think that going through that process may have helped you build your business today?
I think getting sober, and really checking myself and being able to be checked by other people is what helps me in business. 1000%. I think being able, one of the biggest things I learned getting sober, man, is I'm going to be wrong. Right. And, I try not to be wrong a lot, but when I am, I need to be okay with being corrected by it. And I think getting sober has been one of the biggest tools to help me with that, being humble, that I don't know everything, right? Being able to ask for help. And it could be petty little things, dude. Like, for instance, my logo stuff. Dude, I suck with the computer. My excuse is I went away, right, when technology took off. I went away, the first iPhone came out, I came home, and there was a virtual video games.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
World
a
has
lot
changed.
changed, and I just, put that to the wayside. Technology is not my strong suit. That's something that I struggle with, right? I have a very basic invoice system that I use, but it works for me, right? It's clear enough for customers to feel safe, protected, whatever that looks like. That's also easy for me to use. And that's stuff that, I got from asking other people, what service do you use? Which one do you like? What does this do for you? Some of them are more complicated. Some of them are easier to use. I have the more dumber down one. You know what I mean? It's not my strong suit. But yeah, it's sobriety and the fundamentals, the discipline throughout these houses can make you, right? I'm sober 9 years. Kudos, right? I shouldn't shoot heroin and rob people, right? At the end of the day, it's not a way of living life. But you ask my grandmother how she feels about me being 9 years sober, it's a little bit different of an impact, right? So it gave me an opportunity to become an active member of society, right? And that's the goal, right? Getting sober is great. Not robbing people is great. But how am I living, right? What am I doing with my time sober? You know what I mean? That's what the difference is. And it's am I going to apply this stuff to my life, or am I just going to not be a drug addict? There's a difference between being sober and abstinence, in my opinion. And I don't want to be abstinent. I know where that brings me.
Love that. So I think that the last 9 years, you've not only shed a lot of light on who you are and who you could become. I think you've showed a lot of people what's possible. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years going from the place that you are right now? What's your projection, and where do you want to be?
It's there's a couple different levels to this, right? And there's some stuff that I'd like to ask you guys on it. It's 5-year plan, continue to grow the businesses, right? Started a couple other businesses this year. I want to be able to focus on those and continue to grow all of them while pushing paints, at the top, right? That's my bread and butter right now. But I want to venture down and continue to open up these other businesses, be part of other things. More freedom to be able to step away from the company and not feel like I can take a week family vacation and not be checking the phone, right? Not having to be on every single job site from start to finish. And continuing to grow the company, and there's ways with, different payrolls and different structures and different, scheduling, all stuff like that I need to continue to grow with. And I think right now where I struggle is I feel like I need to still be very hands-on with the company. You know what I mean? I feel like that's holding me back.
Hey guys, quick interruption to the show. Please don't forget to follow us and like us.
You can find us on Spotify and YouTube. Hit that like button. We appreciate the algorithm. Thanks, guys.
Love you guys.
I think we could both shine some light on this. I'll go first. I think number one, forget about all your other companies. Let's take your first company, and you have to do something. My mentor told me when I was 20, I think I was 24 years old. I was already in business for 7 years. I said the same thing, bro. I just can't grow. I don't know what to do. I'm doing everything. I'm working endless hours. I don't sleep. I'm on the job. I'm doing the paperwork. I'm doing all this. He goes, because you're a control freak. And I said, well, how are you going to be successful in business if you're not a control freak? He said, not being a control freak. He says, the problem is your mentality feels like nobody could do it as good as you, so you don't give nobody a chance. And granted, some people may not do it as good as you, but they're still going to do it. and nobody's going to be you. And the biggest failure in business is 100% of business owners have said this once or more. I wish I can duplicate me. And guess what? You fucking can't. It's impossible. We're not duplicatable. We're one person brought here, and we're the only person. But what we can do is create a system. And a system creates a predictable result. And if we create systems and deliver systems to the people who want on our team and create a culture, we're going to be able to do that. So what I would tell you from my experience is if you want these other companies to shine, let's take your first company over the course of the next 6 months. Let's perfect that to the point where you can take 50% of the time you're spending there right now, not doing it because you're letting go of control. You're putting the right people in place. And understand something. You may have to pay 3 people more money than you're paying 6, but those 3 people will perform 9 people's work. Mm-hmm. So if you get the right people in place, create the right culture, the right systems, and you understand that things roll based on how you want them to roll and you not being there, but you're still a part of it, and you could perfect that in the next 6 to 12 months, then you could take time away and go to your other companies. I personally think that if you try to build these other companies while you can't leave this company, you're going to stress yourself out with your main company while you're trying to build the other companies, and time is going to run out every single day, and you're not going to know where to go. So create a system. You have existing guys working there. You got to get those guys engaged in what you're trying to do. It's going to be a process, 30, 60, 90 days. After you get that rolling for the next 6 months, then you take your time, let's say in June, and you start focusing. You're building your platform on these other companies now, but then you start focusing on these other companies in June and start building those other companies with that same culture you created with the people you're going to put in those places, and you're going to watch yourself free up.
Yeah, I couldn't really agree more. So I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I think opening up multiple LLCs at a point where you're trying to automate and perfect one LLC is a mistake. I think that, or rather I know that there is something called the first mover advantage, right? You think you get into a space and you have to be the first one in the space to be successful. But in reality, it's just being exceptional at something that you do. You're exceptional at your painting, what you do in your painting company. I think focusing on that and expanding and exploring that is going to be your first and most important step to getting to a point where you want to get to. And like Dan said, then you can focus on these other endeavors. The thing is, you're never going to be able to do all 3 at the same time if you haven't done one once, right? Now, if you were in a different position and you've done this 5 times, then yeah, maybe you could do 6 at a time. You could scale 6 at a time. But the reality is you're not going to be able to duplicate yourself. However, you will find people that are better than you at certain things that you do currently. And that should be your first focus, right? You talked about invoicing. You said it keeps you up at night, which I thought was hilarious, by the way. I thought that was funny. That was his answer. So what keeps you up at night? Invoicing, sending invoices, LOL. And I was like, that is funny, right? Because that is such a mundane thing that honestly you should not be worried about. But piecemealing that and getting someone that could do invoices for 4 hours a day, that could do it twice as good as you can, is very easy to do. So breaking down what you do on a daily basis and saying, well, who could I find to do this little piece? And then really being laser focused on finding that person is going to bring you the holy grail, which is time and freedom, which is what you want.
And that person, if they're doing invoicing for company A and you're there part-time, you can bring them on full-time, do company B and C, and you can they understand your system, right? And then you talk about sales. You want to get a guy in sales. You have a guy who you believe, hey, you start commission-based and whatever small salary, have them drive around with you, see how you connect with the customer, because you talked about it earlier. Offset was like, hey, it's my connection and how I can make that customer feel.
Yeah.
Well, why can't somebody else make that customer feel the same way? If you're delivering your company, you should be able to trust somebody to deliver that company as well. And if you do, and they have enough passion because they're getting paid to bring value to the marketplace, you're going to see a big difference. But you have to let go of that control and all those little things. Like, I don't invoice, I don't send emails, I don't do any of that shit. Like, that's not for me. That's beginner shit.
Yeah.
That's got to be to somebody. You're going to hire a girl or a guy, $15-20 an hour. They're going to work part-time, get done when you do. Send them a little voice note. Hey, here's what I need done today, blah, 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 blah. Get it done. You know what I mean? It takes you 5 minutes. You don't even have to text anymore. You literally send a voice note.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, invoice this customer, blah, 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 blah. This is what I'm owed, whatever. And all you got to do is deposit the money, take care of the payroll, do whatever you got. Got a payroll company, everything's all said and done. But the problem is like when you feel like you have to do it all, the minimum pay to somebody who's willing to do that work brings on a lot of extra time for you and a lot more money for you, because now you can start focusing on other places of your life.
It's a lot easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
We say here, but I can tell you firsthand, that's exactly what I have done. And taking the first plunge is very difficult, but it's almost addicting to the point where you said, oh, wow, I could have unloaded this whole entire time. What else can I do? What else can I give away that, again, is this a mundane task that I could train somebody to do? And there's someone who asked me a really good question. What are you good at? And the list was long, right? Because that's what we do as business owners is we do everything, and we do everything exceptionally well, or at least we think, until we find someone that does it that much better. And for you, it's like you said that you sell all your projects, right? Like you're the face, you're the salesman, you're the operator, you're the whole nine. But which part of the process makes you the most money and is the hardest thing to replace? I'd say sales is probably one of them, right? So everything else except for sales should be what you're doing right now until you get to the point where you could find a salesperson, and then you're just reviewing everybody's work collectively. And one of the questions that's probably looming in your mind right now is, well, maybe I can't afford it. I can't afford someone full-time to invoice. It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't, the delta, the amount of money that I save doesn't offset the amount of money that I've earned, or vice versa, however you look at it. But, there are other sources, right? There's automations that you could create. There's people that are part-time. There's overseas. There's a lot of different avenues that maybe you have explored, but I assume that if we're invoicing here, that maybe we haven't explored them just entirely yet. So that would be our advice, I think, when it comes to growth and what you expect. And that's the famous saying, right? As soon as you get to that point where now you have people in every sector that you had once done before, now you have to inspect what you expect constantly.
Yep. It's like rowing a boat, right? Like if you have 8 people rowing versus just you rowing, who's going to win? You're going to get exhausted over time. But out of 8 people, if 2 people take a break every 10 minutes, that boat's still going to beat you every time. So we look at the capacity of what people can deliver, and we don't feel like these people can do our job. But if someone could just simplify what we do because they're good at that, and that's what I'm paying them to do, and they're going to go out there and they're going to take this task off of me and free up my time, because there's certain things that you do that take up so much of your time.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you had just a project manager, I don't know if you do or not, but if you had a project manager who just went to your jobs daily, because you probably got 2-3 jobs going on a day, go run those jobs daily, check in with the customers, check in with the subs, check in with the workers, make sure everything's good, reports back to you, you're on your phone doing your appointments, and doing other things, and you're freeing up your time. Now you're not running around all like a crazy man. That's step one, you know what I'm saying? So how do I free up my time? It's going to cost me a little bit of money, but how valuable is my time, and how much money am I willing to give up in long term to make back?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's really about, there's another really important piece that someone told me once. You have to be able to accept a percentage of failure. And I never really thought about that. And they said preset that beforehand. Say you'll accept 2% or 5% of failure rate, whatever it is. Maybe it's a missed invoice. 5% of the invoices are incorrect, as long as they're not extremely devastating where they lost $10,000. But put a numerical number behind it where it's capital gains. And say, oh, okay, I'm okay with losing on the invoicing end 5% of my net revenue or 2% of my net revenue, whatever it is, and hold that person to that, right? You need to set goals for that person in order for them to be successful, just like you have done yourself.
So you got a wife and you have one daughter?
Yeah.
So just me thinking, and I don't know the reality of this because we never talked about this, it's hard for you to balance everything because you're doing everything.
Yeah.
How do you balance your work life?
Some days better than others, man. And like it reverts back to, maybe just that like undertone, like I want to show up differently than my dad did, right? So since my daughter's been born, I can probably count, except for when I was like traveling for work or something like that, I can count on maybe one hand, at most 2 hands, how many nights I haven't given my daughter a bath, right? That's my time. No matter what I have going on, I make sure that, since she's been born, that's been my thing. I might not make every dinner. I might not make every, thing that she has going on. But that's like my time to like spend with her, getting her to bed. It's important to me, dude. I don't, they say like your daughter dates who you are. And, I'm trying to set a high bar, dude. I'm trying to set a high bar.
When's the last time you took your daughter on a date? Just you and her?
Dude, I spend a lot of time with her. We, whether it's just going to like the mall or we go out to eat together or stuff like that. Past couple weeks have been a little crazy, but a lot of times like I take her to a lot of her stuff like horseback riding. She just got into recently, so like I take her to that and we'll go grab a bite or something after that. But something that like I've really been focusing on, especially like with being a businessman, right? My wife gets on my ass a lot, and I'm sure it's normal. Sometimes more than others, but a phone, dude. I get stuck on it sometimes, right? We go away every year for 4th of July. I'm away, waking up every morning early. The first thing I'm doing is I'm on the phone, making sure the guys are set up at the job. So it's like, that's where it tied in before, like where I was bringing up that concern. But the balance of it is like being able to set aside the time, right? Like I worked Christmas Eve, and since then I haven't worked, right? I've been very little on my phone. I want to be present with my family. I want to be able to experience this stuff. My daughter's young, dude. How many more years do I have her, with the magic of Christmas?
I think to get your wife off your ass, I think a good thing to do with your family, maybe once a week or once every couple weeks, is it could be on a Saturday or Sunday at dinner. Engage your family in what your mission is. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. You guys go on vacation. You do things. So, hey, daddy works. Here's where we're going in 6 months. Here's where we're going in 5 months. And when you get your family engaged in what you're doing and the purpose, and they feel like they're a part of it, your wife's not going to be on your ass.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're on your phone all the time and you're not connecting, but then your wife knows, like, hey, babe, like me and you are going to go here, and I'm going to do this for you. It's not the bags. It's not the this. It's not the that. It's the time that you're going to spend with her, but the time you have to spend away from her to spend that time with her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you engage your family in those situations, I learned this a long time ago, especially like when I was going through my divorce process. I sit down with my kids and, I said, for the next 2 years, I got to grind. I got to do what I got to do, head down, but here's where we're going to go. And then I surprised my kids with like a dream vacation. And I said, welcome to the rest of your life. Just let me do what I got to do. And this is what I'm going to supply you with, no matter what I got to do. And I always had them engaged. Now they look forward to those 2 times a year that we go to this special place, and they tell everybody about it because it was a gift, but we all participated.
Yeah, that's huge. Like an area that I have struggled, like my wife's got her own business, right? That's the shirt I'm wearing today. Miss Marvelous, she started it up. It's funny because when I met her, 8 years ago, she was in nursing school. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to be set, benefits, nurse money. Shortly after that, and this is, I make jokes about it, but I admire it, man. She like had an, whatever you want to call it, epiphany or whatever that looks like, of that's not what she wanted with her life, right? She didn't want to be a nurse. She didn't want to deal with that. She didn't want those hours, whatever. On the back end of it, it's like I've kind of given her that opportunity to do what she wants to do with her life by being able to finance stuff and work, but like she's allowed me to give us that life, so I'm not going to take all the credit. But she started this company. She does eyelash extensions and stuff like that, and she crushes, man. This is some idea that she had, and when she started it up, I think 5 years ago, we were like dead broke, man. And like I took, $1,200 to give her to take the class. Gave her $800. I'm not gonna say I gave it to her as our money, but we know what that means. And dude, and since she got her certification and everything, she's been grinding, man. And she's gotten up to like 50 clients at a time, and she's been down to 30 clients at the time. And it's like an opportunity where like she can come to me and be vulnerable, like, hey, I lost another client. I'm like, good. Like, focus on this more. Right. Spend the time to, be with Riv. I'm not going to say I'm a religious person. I'm a firm believer in God, right? Whatever that looks like, spiritually or not. God's, opening up something, right? If things doesn't go as planned, it's not a bad thing. Good. I'm going to find a good reason, right? Life's a perception of mind. You can take any situation and you can sit and dwell on it or whatever, or find some sort of positive to turn it into.
What's the good out of it?
You know what I mean? There's a good and bad in any situation, man. So, like, I flipped that, but, like, before I went on that rant, we've been in times where like I'll be like, hey, I gotta work, Saturday, this, that, and the third, and she's like, dude, what about my business? Why is my business not as important as yours? And I want to be like, because you don't pay the bills.
Right.
But that's not that's like, I want to say that out of anger or annoyance or whatever that looks like, but she's right at the end of it. You know what I mean? Why am I discrediting her business?
Because you can't let go, and you got to be there, and you have control.
Exactly.
You can't set your guys up. So that's something you have to work on this year.
And that's stuff that I have made control, been able to look inward on, right? Did I do it the first time she said it to me? No. Did I do it the second time? No, but it hit me a little bit harder the second time because I actually saw what she was saying. And I've made the changes. I've hired the guys that are good. A lot of growth in the company this year, a lot more money getting paid out to employees this year. But it's the long term at the end of it. Like you guys were saying, like for me to be able to do, B and C, I got to make sure A is good, and B and C don't exist without putting the extra couple dollars into A. Since I started my business, man, I put a lot of money back into it, whether it's, doing some apparel stuff or, just buying different equipment, buying a guy that works for me has everything he needs, right? They're not looking or wanting or needing anything. They have all the equipment they need. Not saying that a company shouldn't have that, right? But like I make sure that the money goes back into business.
But the truth is that a lot of companies don't. You're putting your people first and investing in your people, which is ultimately just going to give you 10x the returns.
Yeah.
But overall, there's no doubt in my mind, Craig, that you're going to succeed in whatever it is that you do. Helping people that you've never met before become sober, very honorable. Helping your wife, even though you're running a business, helping people stay sober, helping them with their lives, raising a daughter. You're a magnificent person, for sure. No one could ever take that away from you. And I think that you're going to do fantastic things. But my question to you is, and there's one more thing that I know, the reason why I know you're going to be successful is you ask the questions that put you in a vulnerable position, right? A lot of people are afraid to ask the questions because they think that they're going to look silly to other people. But in reality, we all have the same question. It's just some people are more brave to ask it than others. So I appreciate and applaud you for that. But with that, the question is, with everything that we talked about today, what are your key takeaways and what are you going to do moving forward to get to your goal of maybe giving yourself some more freedom?
I mean, you guys hit it on the head, man. Like for me to be at max capacity, right? For me to be able to fulfill the vision, I need to have less me and more help, right? So I need to be okay with, not being a control freak. And I think there's ways to still be that control freak, right? At the end of the day, I pick who goes in that position, right? I control that situation. So I'm controlling that narrative, right? Being able to, and I'll say this real quick, like the whole expectations things, right? Like I want to expect someone to do something, right? And like something like I learned about expectations, right? I'm going to end up mad one way or another. Right. And it's funny to look at because it's like I can hire a guy that I'm going to have do sales. Right. And I expect him to sell X amount a week. If he doesn't meet that, I'm going to be mad. Right. But if he goes surpassed it, how am I going to feel that he crushed what I set for him?
Fantastic, because you found the guy.
I'll feel good, but I'll also be like, this dude really went out here and crushed it. It's like a funny way of looking at it. I won't be mad that he did it, but a part of me will be like, damn, this dude crushed it. And I'm going to feel some type of way.
Anthony said it before. You got to inspect what you expect. You know?
Exactly.
You got to see and be able to create that. All the results that happen in your life are going to be an ultimate outcome of what you believe is possible and what you believe is not possible. So I was just thinking here when you're like, right, I got the right guys. What if Craig just hired another guy for $300 a day or whatever it is, and the job took a half a day longer, but Craig just freed up a whole day?
Yeah.
How much is that day worth?
Yeah, a lot, man.
You're already making the same amount of money because now you're taking all that time that you're not spending there and spending it elsewhere. So the value is coming back to you tenfold.
I want to put Craig back on the hot seat though for a second because we kind of detracted from the question. So let's dive back in. I want something very specific that we're going to hold you to. What's the first thing that you're going to take off your plate by hiring or automating?
I think I'm going to really implement, like you touched on it, something to help me with the invoicing. Whether that looks like, and I have talked to someone over the past week or two about it, and she was telling me that she would help me with like an automative thing that gets sent back, or like, finding someone that can take a couple hours, even a week, right? Mm-hmm. Because something that I've learned over scheduling the past year, especially, like I remember my first 2 years, like someone would call me and I'd be like, yeah, I'll be right there, right? They need this painting. I gotta go. And I would like drop what I was doing to like go look at it because like, dude, there's 1,000 painting companies. So I felt like if I got there first, I had the upper hand. Mm-hmm. Not really the case. Everyone's always gonna go with the cheapest option. 9 times out of 10. But I've turned away from that, and instead of me having to chase that, I like got to a point where I try to do all my, bidding on Thursday and Friday, right? Set them all for Thursday and Friday. So I'm not going to a job Monday morning and then having to be somewhere that afternoon and then going to this job at 4:30 Tuesday, just spreading myself thin, right? It took away from a lot of time that I thought that I had to be somewhere else. In reality, it was just a delusional thought over fear, right?
Yeah.
But being able to overcome that and look at it a different direction, that's helped me a lot, the past year especially. But yeah, definitely, helping with the invoicing. I struggle in the area because I am one person, whether it's working till 4, getting home, getting dinner ready, whatever that looks like. By the time 9 o'clock comes around, I'm supposed to send out 3 invoices. I only get 1 done that night because I still haven't even showered yet. And my wife's telling me I stink. So, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, I'll get this one done tonight. And then tomorrow comes. And dude, tomorrow comes a lot. You know what I mean?
You know what the challenge is for you? This episode's not going to be live for 6 weeks.
Oh, shit.
So 6 weeks from now,
it's done.
when your episode's live,
gotta be done.
and you can comment on YouTube, wherever it is, and you could tell people, hey, watch the full video, look at what I said, and here's what I did.
We want a video testimony that Intrepidus Podcast made him do this, and now he's got X amount more time back.
Awesome.
A quick shout out. But, well, look, Craig, really appreciate you coming on. Love your story. Obsessed with your story. I'm glad that you shared it with everyone, and we're so open today. How could everyone find you if they're looking to push some paint?
Push and Paint LLC on Instagram, Facebook. That's where we're at now. Also, another thing I got to work on this year. I'm real, off the grid, old school, don't really have a website. I understand it's 2024, about to be 25. I still don't have a website. You guys can trash me on that all you want.
We have a really good website guy.
That's number 2. That's number
really
2.
good
We
website
do.
guy. Really good. Alan is the best.
We'll hook you up with
Alan is
Alan.
the best.
Yeah, so all stuff that I want to, continue to brand myself, right? And that's all stuff that's on the list to get done, sooner than later.
Instagram, well, by the time this comes out, he'll have a website too. Yeah. But what about your wife? Why don't you shout out your wife and her business too?
Miss Marvelash on Instagram, Facebook. Any guys watching this, any females, best last artist you'll meet in Jersey, probably this side of the Mississippi. But yeah, give her a shout.
She does Botox too?
No, I wish. I'd be rich.
Nah.
Awesome.
Stay tuned for Botox coming soon near you. Well,
yeah,
pushing
awesome, Botox.
It was awesome having you here as a guest. Hey guys, if you're not following us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, go ahead and do so. We appreciate it. Craig, thank you.
Yeah, real quick.
Thanks,
before we get out.
Not done yet.
And this is something that's important to me. And this isn't a dig at no one, man, but this is just how life works, right? And I'm sure both you guys have experienced this, and I've experienced it more now in the last few years after being a business owner. I can't tell you how many friends I have that podcast, right? Which is great. And I support them, and I like them, and I share them, and I do all this stuff. Dan, I met you, I don't know, a year and a half ago when you first got this property, and you had me come check some stuff out, and your ideas down here. Didn't know me from a can of paint, dude. And, fast forward all these, this time later, you started your podcast up, and I'm here on your show. I appreciate that. All my boys that have it, people that I thought were your friends, they never ask. Right? It's like that old saying, like, your friends want to see you do well, but never better than them. And I've experienced that a lot since I started my business, man. And I try to put everyone on.
I watch what you do, man. I enjoy what you do. I didn't know your entire story because we never got personal, but I'm excited that now that we've got to see you on a personal level, on a deeper level, and very, very happy that you were on the show.
No, I appreciate
Same
you guys.
here.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on,
man.
brother.
Thanks.
Cool.
Take care, guys.